Before we get into the podcast, let's get through the rigmarole first. For guys, this podcast posts each and every single Wednesday. The first segment of the show, we go through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. The second segment of the show, we go through all the AFC East news you need to know about. The third segment of the show, we highlight all the players you need to know about on game day. And the fourth and final segment of the show, we go through the Miami Dolphins fan Q&A, where we answer fans' questions. So this first news story is a really interesting one. Dolphins had interest in cornerback Richard Sherman. Support comes from Dallas Robinson of Pro Football Rumors. The Seahawks were known to have discussed cornerback Richard Sherman with the Patriots this offseason, but apparently New England wasn't the only AFC East club to have inquired on the All-Pro defensive back. The Dolphins also asked about Sherman's availability, reports Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald. And while that's a hard one to say. And while receiver Jarvis Landry was, quote, raised in talks, there's no indication Landry was ever formally offered in negotiations. Miami is no stranger to acquiring former Seattle cornerbacks, as the club picked up Byron Maxwell after a one-year layover in Philadelphia last season. But the Dolphins are still weak in the secondary, as a second-year pro Xavier Howard and Alteron Werner are the team's top options behind Maxwell. Tony Lippett is out for the season, but his injury occurred after Richard Sherman talks. Recently, Miami went hard after free agent corner Joe Hayden before he signed with the Steelers. Sherman is due his base salary north of $11 million in each of his next two seasons. Reportedly requested a trade out of Seattle, and the Seahawks attempted to honor his ask, but discussions seemingly never got serious with any other club. The Patriots were in the Sherman market, but ultimately bowed out, possibly because of Seattle's high asking price, a 2017 first-round pick, plus a conditional mid-round choice in 2018. Landry, meanwhile, has also been mentioned in trade rumors. Although Dolphins have refuted those reports, scheduled to become a free agent next spring, Landry still hasn't been offered any extension by Miami, which may prefer fellow wideout Devontae Parker. The franchise tag probably isn't an option for the 24-year-old Landry, as the $16 million plus tender figure is likely unattainable for a receiver whose primary play is in the slot. So, obviously, the Dolphins need a cornerback thing. I don't believe that. I think the corners are fine. I just think the chemistry needs to come back. I think the communication needs to be better, and the mental side of football needs to improve for the secondary, because they're underachieving. The talent level there is strong. I mean, Byron Maxwell last year was one of the best corners of the last 10 games. I mean, just look at the stats and how many yards he gave up per play. It's insane. Then we look at Xavier Howard, who I thought had a tremendous offseason. I thought he had a decent rookie season as well. He just didn't get to play all 16 games. So when you're sitting here and you're talking about the cornerback room, I don't think we need to go out and get somebody like a Richard Sherman. It would have been nice to go out and get somebody like Joe Hayden, who's not going to cost us all that much money. It would have been basically we're getting a very high-risk, very low-reward player in Joe Hayden. So, and as opposed to, trading a first-round pick or an all-pro slot receiver in Jarvis Landry for a player that's way older than the player you're trading for, I don't know. I don't really like that Richard Sherman deal. I remember when the rumors came out that we were discussing a deal with the Seahawks, and obviously those rumors came to be true. Nothing just ever got done, but I'm not giving up a first-round pick for Richard Sherman. That's just how I feel. I just don't think he's that one player, especially of that position and at his age, where we're going to get maybe 4 more years of his prime. Maybe. So I'm glad the Dolphins didn't pull the trigger on that, and I still don't think we need Richard Sherman. I think our secondary is just fine. They didn't have the greatest performance in San Diego. Half of that had to do with Philip Rivers had a tremendous performance. When you go back and look at that game, which I did, I went back and looked at it from previewing it, and some of the plays that he called, like faking us out on that screenplay, that's just Philip Rivers. And he does that to his secondary. He'll confuse you. I mean, he did that to the Seahawks secondary when he beat them at CenturyLink Field. So Philip Rivers is known to do this, and I think it had more to do with what Philip did in the confusion and chemistry in the secondary. And I don't think it has anything to do with the talent level. Plus, we have young players like Cordrea, who I think is going to be a very good player. I mean, in preseason, it was like he was yawning the entire time. He wasn't challenged by anybody. And obviously, Torrey McTyer also has a bright future as well. So I don't think we need Richard Sherman. Dolphins Alright, so this is kind of related to the same thing, but it kind of expands on it a little bit. Dolphins went hard after Richard Sherman could re-sign Jay Cutler. This report comes from Pro Football Rumors. It comes from Roy Parks. Armando Salguero of the Miami Herald says Dolphins quarterback Jay Cutler has impressed the team with his demeanor and work ethic, and if he plays well this season, Salguero writes that Miami could consider re-signing him and trading Ryan Tannehill, thereby creating a great deal of cap room and adding an early draft choice in the process. We are a long way from that happening, of course, but if Cutler somehow becomes a modern-day Jim Plunkett, Tannehill could be on a different sideline in 2018. And then the rest of the report goes on to talk about the same thing we just talked about Richard Sherman. But this whole Jay Cutler situation and how he could become a modern-day Jim Plunkett. If you're unfamiliar with Jim Plunkett, he was a former first-round pick, didn't pan out in New England. He goes to the Raiders and wins them 2 Super Bowls. So it's kind of very similar to what happened to, except Jay Cutler had a way better career than Jim Plunkett early on. He comes to Miami. If you won 2 Super Bowls, that would make obviously all of us ecstatic, for God's sakes. So. And obviously you would keep somebody like that around if they're capable of winning you 2 Super Bowls. So if Jay Cutler shows that he can do that for our team, of course we would keep Jay Cutler. But again, that would obviously, I mean, he would have to do a lot, and he would have to keep up his play. I thought he had a fantastic first game. A fantastic first game. I thought he made plays in the pocket. His pocket, dude, there was that one play where I think it was either Jatavis Brown or maybe it was Melvin Ingram. It was one of the two. It was Jatavis Brown and Melvin Ingram. 2 very strong and hard-hitting players. Had his hands wrapped around Jay Cutler. I still don't know how Jay Cutler got out of it. He ended up escaping the pressure somehow. I don't know. The man's strong enough to do that, which is insane. And then, he dumps it down to Julius Thomas, short of the first down marker. But Jay Cutler still has it, is my point. And he's a very talented quarterback. I thought he had a tremendous first game, and the biggest question mark, other than all the other rhetoric that's surrounding him in terms of his demeanor and all this other stuff. I never believed any of that anyway. But it's his efficiency. I think for me was the thing that I was worried about, is how efficient can he be in running an offense. He was as efficient gets on Sunday. Like I said, he was 9 for 10. I think almost when the first half was over. So, or maybe it was somewhere in the second quarter. I'm not sure, but he was efficient the entire game. Obviously, his quarterback rating shows that, over 100 quarterback rating. All right, so we have a lot to talk about in terms of Lawrence Timmons. I know this is a very head-scratching thing, so I'm just going to read some headlines and then we're going to read the report. Obviously, if you didn't know, Lawrence Timmons was not injured on Sunday. He just went missing. So, Lawrence Timmons leaves Dolphins. That was the first thing to happen. Then Dolphins Lawrence Timmons wants to resume playing, so he's fine. It was a personal matter. Dolphins called cops to find Lawrence Timmons. They could not find him. They ended up finding him at the airport trying to leave for Pennsylvania. And Dolphins have limited Lawrence Timmons' options. And then we saw what they did in terms of what they were going to do. And then finally, we get to Dolphins suspend linebacker Lawrence Timmons. So let's get into this. This report is by Zach Links of Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins announced they have suspended linebacker Lawrence Timmons indefinitely. Timmons went AWOL on Sunday on the team prior to Week 2 against the Chargers. It's not immediately clear whether the team will work with Timmons to facilitate a return per the terms of the CBA. Miami can suspend him for up to 4 games for conduct detrimental to the team. If that happens, the remaining guarantees in the veteran's contract will void. That would free the Dolphins from the rest of the 2 years, $12 million deal he inked in the offseason. Timmons apparently skipped town to visit the mother of his child in Pennsylvania. He did not notify the team of his plans beforehand, causing the club to file a missing persons report with the police. Until Sunday, Timmons had not missed a game since 2009. It sounds like he's going to be missing several more unless he can make good with the team's brass. Obviously not, because they suspended him. So here's the deal. So there's a very key thing in this. So if he is suspended 4 games, we can cut him without having to give him anything, basically. So, like the report says, the contract would be void, meaning we're free of anything that we owed Lawrence Timmons. So, cutting him would basically be nothing. Obviously, apparently the Steelers are showing interest in Timmons if he does get cut. Timmons had a tremendous preseason, and I think it would be foolish for the Dolphins to just let him go because I think he can be. I mean, he showed, he showed that he still has it. Like he's still in his prime. I thought he looked better than he did last year. He looked faster. I don't know if the man lost weight. Like I said, he just looked fast. He was running sideline to sideline. He was commanding the huddle on the defense. He was doing a very good job, and he's a good leader as well. Why he left? Maybe his child apparently had something to do with his daughter. Who knows? Regardless of what happened, though, obviously he should have told the team what was going on. And it's not like the day of he left; it was the night before he left. So he could have told. He had plenty of time to tell the team what was going on. If you can sit there and wait for a flight, you can at least call your coach and say, "Man, something happened to my daughter. I have to go. I got to go home." And he just didn't do that. So. Now, whether he is going to get suspended, it seems like he is. Maybe it's a 2-game suspension. Who knows what it's going to be. And maybe, the Dolphins can let him. I think the Dolphins. Adam Gase said something really key at the post-game press conference. He said, I can't say anything right now because I need all the details on Lawrence Timmons. So whatever he found out was obviously, it made him upset enough to suspend him. So I honestly doubt Lawrence Timmons is going to come back and play anytime soon. And it sucks because he is a really good player. He would have helped us a great deal on Sunday. Our defense would have been better with him. It's worse without him. I can tell you that right now. So the Dolphins suspend Lawrence Timmons, and they go out and they make a tremendous move, in my opinion, in getting a very underrated player. So the Dolphins trade for linebacker Stephon Anthony. Obviously, former Clemson product, very good player, and we're going to get into a lot about him in this podcast. The Dolphins have acquired linebacker Stephon Anthony from the Saints. Miami announced today the New Orleans will receive a 2018 fifth-round pick from the Dolphins. Tweets Ian Rappaport of NFL.com. Veteran linebacker Lawrence Timmons was dealt a team suspension earlier today after leaving the Dolphins over the weekend. So the club was on a hunt for help at the second level of its defense. Anthony, who can be controlled through the 2019 season via the fifth-year option, will give Miami reinforcements at linebacker for the remainder of the season and also for the long haul. Thought to be a candidate for release prior to the regular season, Anthony has been binded about as a trade candidate for some time. The Saints simply have too many linebackers on their roster, and the club's starting jobs went to free agent acquisitions Manti Te'o, A.J. Klein, and third-round rookie Alex. I can't say that. I need my glasses. With Craig Robinson, Michael and Nathan Stupar also available in reserves, New Orleans had no place for Anthony. Anthony, 25, was a full-time starter in 2015 after entering the league as a first-round selection out of Clemson. But his playing time dwindled last season, as he started only 3 games and played only on just 133 defensive snaps before a knee injury ended his campaign in December. Anthony, who also played on roughly a quarter of New Orleans special team snaps, managed just 15 tackles after posting 112 stops during his rookie year. The Dolphins will be on a hook for the remainder of Anthony's $1 million base salary, which is fully guaranteed, and will be responsible for a similar non-guaranteed figure in 2018. Miami will then have until May to decide on Anthony's 2019 fifth-year option. The Dolphins don't need to make a roster move to accommodate Anthony's arrival, as Timmons no longer counts against the team's 53-man count. So there's a lot to take in there. I like Stephon Anthony. I think he is a very weird player when you look at his career. Obviously, coming out of Clemson, he's a former first-round pick. This man was very talented. I did some research onto why his defensive snaps dropped such a dramatic level. And I really have no idea. Only thing that I could figure out is that Dennis Allen, the Saints defensive coordinator, when they asked him about why his snaps dropped off so significantly, he said that they're trying to develop him. So I really don't understand what that is supposed to mean. I mean, the man as a rookie started the entire 16-game season. So what happened? I don't understand that. Like, he needs time to develop. So why did he start all 16 games the year before then? I don't understand that. That's weird. But the point is the man has a ton of talent. Maybe he just needs. I mean, obviously, the whole Matt Burke side of this really intrigues me because Matt Burke can mold a linebacker. He has a great history when it comes to that. I mean, Matt Burke has coached many different Pro Bowl linebackers. When you talk about his time in Detroit, where he had 2 Pro Bowl linebackers, DeAndre Levy. He had another one. His name is skipping. He's a long-time Detroit Lions linebacker. I can't remember his name right now. And then, obviously, in Cincinnati, he had Vontaze Burfict. So, Matt Burke has a long track record when it comes to developing linebackers and coaching linebackers. He has a very, very good track record. So, Stephon Anthony coming here, he's going to play on the best front seven and the best defense around him that he's ever played on. So, that naturally is going to make him a better player. Now, depending on when he's going to be able to play, when we're going to feel comfortable putting him in the lineup, probably pretty soon, I would assume. Obviously, Rey Maualuga took a game off. So maybe he misses one game, maybe he misses the Jets game, but I would not be surprised if he played in the Jets game. Again, super talented guy. When you look at the physical attributes of Stephon Anthony, super athletic, big dude. He can play in the nickel. He can play on all 3 base downs. He's everything that you would want in a linebacker. Not only that, but he can play he can play middle. He can play strong. He can play weak. So there's a lot of things to like about Stephon Anthony. Again, he's super talented. There's just a lot of unknowns surrounding him. Why did he not play for the Saints in his second year? Why did his playtime drop so significantly? Who knows? And why that's such a big flag and why it's so murky at the same time is, one, the Saints defense is atrocious. They have 0 talent on it. So you would think he would be able to get at least playing time on that roster. 2, he looked really good his rookie season. What happened to him in his second season? And why is the excuse that he needs time to develop? I have no idea. We're about to find out, though. So I think Stephon Anthony has a tremendous upside. Can he live up to his first round talent? I think he can. Watching him at Clemson, he was a dominant linebacker. And obviously, Clemson produces a lot of really good defenders, and we're reaping the benefits of that as well. Obviously, getting Cordrea. I mean, when you look around the NFL, some of the better defensive linemen are from Clemson and linebackers. So, I really like this move. Giving up a 5th-round pick at this point, it was such a need that I don't care. And we only gave up a 5th-round pick, so for a former 1st-round pick. So hopefully, Stephon. Play. I think he can. I mean, again, he's athletic and he's versatile. So, and he's young. So he could, if he pans out, which I think he has a really good chance of doing, then he can be on this roster for a long time. And like I said, he can play middle linebacker, he can play weak side, he can play strong side. And he's obviously a way better athlete than Mike Hole is. So in open space, we're not gonna have those problems anymore, based off of pure ability. Now the mental side of football, that's a totally different thing. I mean, obviously it's gonna take a minute for him to get acclimated to the defense and the play calling. I'm sure we're gonna make it a little as vanilla as we possibly can for him when he gets onto the roster. But his just football instincts and football ability alone, physically, he's better than Mike Hall is right now. He's not going to be where Mike is mentally at this point. But some of those things you saw on Sunday, where Melvin Gordon was just taking swing passes and screens and was just outflanking Mike Hall because he just did not have the speed to get there in time to make the tackle. Stephon Anthony can do those things because he is a super athletic guy. So again, he can play all 3 downs and he can play nickel. So very versatile, and he can play all 3 positions. I love the move. We don't know why. We just don't know what the heck, why what happened. We just don't know what happened. Nor do the New Orleans Saints. So, because they're confused on why they let him go, because he has a ton of talent. He's got a lot of upside. So, I think this is a great move. This is a new. Again, he's only 25 years old, and he was a full-time starter at one point, and then for some reason, something happened in his second year that nobody knows what happened. Then obviously he suffers the knee injury, but I think he's got a fresh new start here. This is the best defense he's ever played on. He's going to be able to play behind Sue, and he's a sideline to sideline capable linebacker. So the talent that he has around him should naturally make him look better, and he should play better with the talent around him, especially with that front seven. So it's going to be fun to watch Stephon Anthony. I think Dolphins fans should get excited because there's a lot of unknowns when it comes to him, and I think we're going to get a good product on the football field. So there's a lot of upside to that. Oh man, I'm glad there was some news today, man, because last week there was zero news. So it's a good thing that we got a bunch of really. I mean, it's not all great news. I hope that Lawrence Timmons can come back at some point, because again, I think he had a tremendous preseason against the ones, obviously, and I think he needs to come back because I think he makes the football team better. And I don't know. Again, we don't have all the details yet. Maybe it was something like ridiculous. But until we find that out, I don't know. I just think the Dolphins should go a little bit easy on him, even though it is weird that it's a weird situation. But we'll see. All right, let's get into the AFC East news you need to know about. We're gonna start with the Buffalo Bills. This first news story, the Bills work out punter Matt Darr. Punter Matt Darr worked out for the Bills, and free agent Brett Tessler on Twitter claims that it went very well. Darr had a 46-yard career average before his release from Miami earlier this month. So, obviously, Matt Darr, a lot of Dolphins fans were scratching their head because he had a really nice career with us. So it's weird that they just let him go like that. But, Hawk had a shaky first game. Obviously, he shanked one when he was trying to down it inside the 20. But I think he's going to play better. I think he's a more talented punter overall. So the Dolphins fans shouldn't get too upset. Staying on the Buffalo Bills, this isn't really news related, but I watched the entire Bills-Carolina game naturally because my brother is a Panthers fan, so I watched the entire game with him. And what I saw from that game, which I think is very interesting, is the fact that Tyrod Taylor, and I said this before, like Tyrod is best when you line him up in the pistol, you get some of those triple options, get a lot of him in the shotgun and all that other stuff. He under center, I think his talents are limited a little bit, and the defense is not as pressured as if he was lining up in the pistol or the shotgun zone read type thing, because there's no threat of him running when he's under center, unless he hikes the ball and then he somehow breaks contain if you don't have a good job containing him in the pocket. And I think him as a passer is dwindled a little bit as well. So they're running more of a traditional offense up there in Buffalo. And I think that's hurts Tyrod a little bit more than, I don't think that's exploiting his talents very well. So that was obviously, if you listen to the podcast, that's a running theme through the podcast, is seeing what the Bills would do with Tyrod Taylor this year with new head coach Sean McDermott. And it looks like they're running more of a traditional offense than they did last year, which is very interesting. So they did not tailor their offense to Tyrod Taylor, which I think is a mistake. All right, so let's get through the Jets. The Jets really don't have anything really newsworthy to talk about. Obviously, their game against the Oakland Raiders was very interesting. Obviously, one of the things that they're going to struggle with is pass protection, and that's something that they struggled with against the Oakland Raiders. Their offensive line is not very good. They average like 80-something yards rushing a game, which is obviously, it's only the first 2 weeks, so take it with a grain of salt. But they can't run the football either. So the offensive line is really struggling to set a line of scrimmage. So that's something that they're going to struggle with all season. So that's some of the things I saw in that Raiders game. Some other things that I saw, that Jermaine Kearse actually has played very well for them for the first 2 games. He had a really good game against the Raiders. He caught he caught a long ball. I know he caught a long ball, but I don't think he caught another one after that. I think he only caught 1 touchdown, but he had a ton of yards. So Jermaine Kearse has been a vocal point of their offense, and by far has been their best receiver throughout the first 2 games. And in terms of news, the Jets really don't have a lot to talk about other than Bryce Petty is their number 2 quarterback, which isn't very interesting news to you guys. So, all right, let's move on to the New England Patriots, who played the New Orleans Saints. I did not watch that game. I actually still have yet to watch that game, so I need to go back and watch it. So I'm going to do State of the AFC East. Before I do, I have to obviously watch that game to see. I know they passed it more. Obviously, looking at Brady's numbers, the man almost passed for 500 yards. But that's against the Saints defense, which their secondary is just Not only is it full of young players, but it's just not very good. So, all right. So this is an update on Rob Gronkowski's injury. This report comes from Pro Football Rumors, and it is by Dallas Robinson. Rob Gronkowski left the Patriots win with a groin injury on Sunday, but the superstar tight end says the issues is nothing serious. He said, quote, nothing serious. According to Mike Russ of ESPN.com, quote, super relieved, Gronkowski said, quote, I knew there was nothing really wrong from the beginning, so I'm good. Despite not playing the fourth quarter, Gronk managed six receptions for 116 yards and 1 touchdown against the Saints. If Gronkowski does miss time, New England would turn to Dwayne Allen and Jacob Hostetler at tight end. So, yeah, there you go. Obviously, that would not be an ideal situation for the Patriots if they had to settle for one of those two. Because, I mean, again, people bring up the analogy, oh, they made the Super Bowl without Gronk, next man up. They had an all-pro tight end in Martellus Bennett, okay? They're not replacing, if Gronk did get hurt again, trust me. Obviously, losing Julian is another great example. It takes more than that. And obviously, they had great depth at tight end last year. They don't have the same depth. And at receiver, they don't have that much depth. So that's going to hurt them this season. Like it or not, that's just football. You know what I'm saying? I am sick and tired of seeing Patriots fans in the media, because everybody's a Patriots fan in the media, it seems like, just go around here and saying, oh, it's next man up. Well, yeah, obviously it's next man up, but you can do your best to try to replace an all-pro slot receiver like a Julian Edelman and an all-pro tight end like Rob Gronkowski. But if you lose one of those two and you don't have sufficient backups or sufficient depth, obviously your team is going to suffer for that. And it just, for some reason, it's like a blind faith with the New England Patriots. I don't know. It's really weird. So that's all the AFC East news you need to know about. So we're into the third segment here. Not a lot of AFC East news. I mean, I would do the state of the AFC East in this video, but I just have not seen. I mean, obviously, I just haven't seen the Saints game yet, so I would just be talking out of my butt there if I would just be making everything up. So I have to go back and watch that game before I talk about that. But so let's get into the third segment of highlighting the players you need to know about on game day. So I have not done a preview video to this game yet. Unfortunately, I could not do one yesterday for just stupid reasons, but I think we'll do something like that for this third segment. Previewing this game, I think when you look at the defensive line, they're obviously going to have an obvious mismatch when it comes to going up against the Oakland Raiders offensive line. The tackles for the Jets are not very good, and neither is the interior. And you saw what Sue was able to do when he goes up against not the greatest interior of a defensive line. Not to mention that, but Davon Godchaux. Davon Godchaux had a really underrated game. In that game, he got penetration at a consistent basis, and I love the whole switching in and out. I think that's a great idea to keep Jordan Phillips's play up, and it showed in that game. You really didn't see effort lost when you saw Jordan Phillips play, because he wasn't forced to start and play all the snaps on the defense, which is a great thing for him. So we get the best out of Jordan Phillips as well, who's a very talented guy. So I like that idea by Matt Burke. And then obviously Davon Godchaux, who I think had a great game as well. And obviously, previewing that game, I wanted him to dominate because he was going to have a favorable matchup in that game. So going into this game, with the Jets' interior of their offensive line, they're going to have the same. It's worse than the Chargers, obviously. So the Sioux, they had trouble blocking Sioux last year in the games that we played them. Obviously, there was a couple times Sioux literally came unblocked, which is unbeknownst to anybody how that happened. So, because obviously he's probably the best defensive lineman on our team, and maybe the best defensive player. I think he is. So that's going to be a vocal point for our defense, is to really dominate this and set the line of scrimmage. So what are the Jets going to do to combat that? They're going to do something similar to the Chargers, because you didn't see a lot of sack production, but you did see a lot of pressures. And the reason that you didn't see a lot of sacks and us get home on some of those pressures is because Phillip Rivers is a god, and the man just got the ball out of his hands quick. And no disrespect to Josh McCown, but he is not on the level of Phillip Rivers. So we should have an easier time of getting after the quarterback. Now what they're going to do is, since we call so many zone blitzes, they're going to try to get the screens out to Bilal Powell a lot. to really get us caught in a blitz. Everybody's going to be rushing upfield and then bailout screen, and then that obviously it's going to be a big gain. So we got to do a better job of Matt Burke has got to realize that. He can't just be willy-nilly calling zone blitzes all the time. So what we're going to have to do is be smarter on defense, and some of the play calling has to be a little bit better there. But I think a vocal point of this game is definitely going to be the defensive line again, because they're going up against a very bad offensive line. So they're going to have to get after the quarterback. I think some of the players that can have great games in this game obviously are the bookend rushers. Cameron Wake, I think he's going to have a very good game. I think Branch should have a very good game. Charles Harris, the playing time that he's going to get, he should have a very good game. So the defensive line in general, I'm going to highlight for this game because they're going to have a mismatch ensue. So to combat some of that quick passing game, and with McCown, it's going to be way more simpler. It's going to be way more simple with McCown than it would have been with Phillip, because obviously you trust Phillip a little bit more to check at the line of scrimmage to get the ball out of his hands quick, because Phillip has one of the quicker releases in the game. So again, what they're going to do with McCown is just do simple screen plays, really try to get blowout Powell in open space, and that's what they tried to do against us last week, or the last time we played them at MetLife Stadium. So that's what they're going to do to combat our defensive line, and that's what most teams are going to do this year. So Matt Burke has to do a better job of recognizing what everybody is going to do in terms of game planning towards us, and recognizing I can't just throw these blitzes out there. It's even on third down. Even on third down, you can go conservative on third down with just a 4-man rush. You don't have to send blitzes because our defensive line is so talented. They can just get stock pressure. You don't need to send and just come up with these crazy blitzes to manufacture pressure, because you already have the talent to do that by themselves. So you can drop people back, send the 4-man rush, and be totally fine. So I think that's what we should do on third down, is just be super conservative, let our talent outwill their talent. So one of the people I'm going to highlight this game is Matt Burke, because I think he does have to do a better job of play calling in this game, in terms of, because what they're going to do is very simple stuff. We just have to recognize their game plan and tailor our game plan around it. And I think it's pretty simple, because obviously they're going to do the same thing, because it worked last time they played it. Even though the scoreboard was lopsided, they had success and obviously the game at Hard Rock as well. They had success getting the ball into Blonde Powell's hands in open space and letting him go to work. And same thing with Matt Forte, who's very capable of doing that as well. So we just have to do a better job of recognizing what they're going to try to do and stopping it. So that's going to be a very, very, very big vocal point. Another big vocal point of this game is the secondary. Sue talked about it a little bit, because this is what teams are going to do against us to really combat teams from doing this quick passing game. And Ronald brought up a really good point down in the comment section below as well. He said, who's a subscriber, Ronald. He said that we need to stop. Matt needs to stop playing zone coverage as much, because this secondary is built to play man press, and that's absolutely correct. And that's the same thing with what Sue said, is we need to come up and we need to jam the receivers. That's not only what Sue said, but Rashad said that after the game as well. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that against the Jets, which is awesome. That gives our defensive line more time to rush. So all of those things, I think you're going to see more sack production from if we do some of those things in this upcoming game. Just be a little bit more simple on defense. You don't have to manufacture pressure if you're Matt Burke. You have the talent up front to do that with a 4-man rush. You don't have to send crazy exotic blitzes and then let them get bailed out by throwing a 2-yard pass and that gains 15. You know what I'm saying? So just be a little bit more vanilla, a little bit more simple on defense. And then again, that goes with the secondary. Just press a little bit more. Hit again. That's what we built this secondary to be, is to do that, so our pass rush could get to the quarterback and nullify the quick pass game. Hopefully, we see that more. And I know we're going against Josh McCown, but that doesn't mean you don't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, just because we're not going against Tom Brady, who obviously their offense is built around that, doesn't mean you still don't do that, because that's playing to our strengths. Do what you do well. So Matt Burke has to do that this upcoming game, for sure. And again, our secondary has to do a better job. I think that's more of a coaching game plan thing. Hopefully, we see a lot more man press against the Jets. And then obviously on the offensive side of the football, to be honest, their secondary. Just take advantage of a young Jet secondary that doesn't have a lot of talent. On the cornerback position, and at the safety position, obviously they have a lot of young talent with Jamal Adams and Marcus May. So we could take advantage of that. Obviously, Jamal Adams is a very talented guy, and he's young and he's a safety. So we could take advantage of that, and at the cornerback position especially, we can take advantage of that. So with our big three, we can really take advantage of their secondary and really have a nice game and give Jay Cutler a lot of good windows to throw to, and a lot of open areas to throw to as well. So that's obviously, I think that's just that's obviously going to be a big part of it, and I think we can take advantage of that. But when you look at, I think what's really going to come down to, hopefully our offensive line stays healthy throughout the week, which I assume they will, because they had a dominant performance against the Jets, the Chargers. So going up against this Jets game, our offensive line, if healthy, going into this game, is a top 5 unit. They're going up against the Jets defensive line that lost some talent there, obviously losing Sheldon Richardson to the Seahawks, I think is a big hit to their defensive line, and that's one less pass rusher. Although obviously Muhammad Wilkerson's a great pass rusher, so Leonard's a good pass rusher as well from the interior. But their defensive line is not as good as it was last year. It's definitely worse. So our offensive line has a chance to really run the football here. And knowing Todd Bowles, he loves those zone blitzes. He likes to send a lot of heat. He loves zero-man blitzes. And he's not going to be able to do that as much with the personnel that he has, and it's not going to be as effective. So we can really take advantage of that with our receivers. And obviously our offensive line, going back to the offensive line, we have a really good chance of really establishing a line of scrimmage. So I think for our offense to get in a lot of third and easy situations, especially against a Todd Bowles offense, a Todd Bowles defense that likes to take a lot of chances, is a good thing, because that really hurts Todd Bowles' game plan from sending a bunch of those blitzes. So I think, as an offense, we can really take advantage of our receivers against their secondary. And our offensive line can really take advantage, and they should, with their talent level, of setting line of scrimmage. So obviously, this is more of a preview than highlighting players that need to have a great game, but I think that's what needs to happen for us to have success against the New York Jets. And obviously, when you look at the Jets, you're like, oh, they're obviously trying to lose. Their roster is very bad, but that doesn't mean you don't lay out, like you hit the gas pedal even harder. You know what I'm saying? So I think those are some of the things that we need to do. And again, on defense, just don't be so, you don't have to be fancy with it. Again, we can get stock pressure. You don't have to do any of that stuff. Just be a little bit more vanilla. And sometimes being simple is good. And being not crazy is good. You're not playing an all-world quarterback as well. So just do what you do best. Man press and let the line go after him. All right, so let's get into the Miami Dolphins fan Q&A. So this first question comes from All-Star Gabe. He says, should we be worried about Timmons and Malaluga? You should be worried about Ray Malaluga more than you should be about Lawrence Timmons. I think you should be, obviously now, the weird situation that we're put in, it's an odd situation. I hope we're a little bit more lenient when it comes to suspension. We really don't know the details of the suspension yet. So if we get some details on that, that would be nice. But until we really do know the details on that, I think Ray Malaluga, you should be worried a little bit more about. And I'm so happy that we got Stephon Anthony, because I think he gives us more options there. And like I said, the great thing about Stephon Anthony is he can play all 3 positions, and he can play all 3 downs. He's not just a linebacker that's good at one thing. He's athletic enough to be in pass coverage, and he should help us in the pass coverage department as well. He's a clear upgrade when it comes to that, in terms of, guarding tight ends and stuff of that nature. So it's a blessing in disguise. Great move by Mike Tannenbaum, getting Stephon Anthony in here to really upgrade the linebacker talent on the roster. So I think you should be more worried about Ray Malaluga because of his shortcomings when it comes to pass coverage. And Lawrence Timmons, the entire Lawrence Timmons situation, I hope we're a little bit more lenient when it comes to obviously he's going to be suspended. For how long and what the parameters of the said suspension is, we're gonna have to find out. All right, so this next question comes from Powerful Taylor. He says, did our run defense play good or what? And absolutely did. Again, I couldn't have even predicted how good our run defense played. And thank God it's fixed, and I hope, and Sue talked about it after the game in his post-game press conference, of how schematically and what they recognized going into that game, and how they really game plan towards it. Really good job by the defense. And again, for all their mental, things on the back end, the front seven and the linebackers communicated well, and they did a really good job in executing their game plan at the full capacity that they did. Hats off to our players for that, and thank God Chase Allen. I mean, Chase Allen, what a rookie, first rookie start for him. He had a great game. Kiko had an amazing game. I just rewatched the game. Kiko had a better game than I thought he did, and so did Chase. So I mean, again, great game by them, and I think they're going to continue to dominate. This next question comes from Anderson. He says, what did you think about the corners and a lot of open receivers? I answered this to the fan Q&A, but I'll answer it again. I think it was more of the mental aspect of things. I think it was more along the lines of just a lot of busted coverages, especially on the last drive, which is really unacceptable. I mean, what's in crunch time like that? You can't have that. Don't hurt yourself, for God's sakes. You're playing Phillip Rivers. I mean, the last thing you want to do is hurt yourself. So, and also, forgot to mention, since I rewatched some of the game, Rashad Jones had a really good game as well. He had a better game than I thought he did at first blush, first watching the game. And, man, he was flying around with the football, man. He is completely healthy. He is all right. This question comes from Eric the Red. He says, how do you feel on trading a bag of peanuts for linebacker Stephon Anthony? I like the move because Miami got a young athlete, despite him not playing up to where he was drafted. And with Timmons and I see Anthony and Kiko outside, with Chase Allen playing at the middle and Hull filling in at times at middle, who would you go with at linebacker? So when you watch tape of Stephon Anthony, and when you look at some of the stats, when he lines up in the middle, he's more productive. So I would line him up in the middle linebacker spot, and I would put just if Lawrence can come back, I think the dream scenario would have Lawrence on the outside and obviously Kiko on the outside. But as of right now, since Lawrence Timmons, him coming back is unknown, I think it should be Stephon Anthony in the middle. You could put Chase in the middle. But, I mean, Chase did a good job starting on the outside anyway, so I would put Chase outside, Kiko outside, and Stephon in the middle. But, again, yeah, you're right, Eric the Red. He was trading him for a bag of peanuts is right. I think we did a tremendous job of executing a trade and finding talent that may be a little bit overlooked. I think Mike Tannenbaum did a good job. B. Dennis says, I know it's early, but what position do you think should be the Dolphins' first round pick in 2018? I would have to see. I don't know. I mean, we would have to play more games to really have a definitive answer on this, but throughout preseason and throughout regular season, offense is fine. I mean, if you want to go with a guard, you can. But Jesse Davis did a great job. So did Anthony Steen rotating. I don't want to say corner, because I'm not joking around when I say corner. I think is a strength of this team. I just think they just didn't play. I think they need to do more man press one, and I think they need to get better chemistry with each other. But I think maybe something in the secondary, I guess you could go with, just in case. Or you could go with guard. So I think those are my two things right now as far as first-round picks. Because I think everything else is pretty nice. And the reason I'm not saying linebacker is because Raekwon tore his ACL. So, I think Raekwon's just fine. B. Dennis says, how satisfied were you? And there's a lot of good line. I would say linebacker is in the discussion because there are a lot of good prospects coming out in the draft. B. Dennis says, how satisfied were you with the secondary last week? Nate Allen could have had a better game. I see some people saying he could have picked off both balls. My argument to that is, especially the one against Travis Benjamin, usually you see the receiver coming down with that ball. So I think Nate Allen did a good job of just getting that out of the way and not even risking anything. And I thought he made a tremendous play on the ball. He could have had a better game. Like I said, he had a very up and down game. But I think, again, it was an up and down game. At least it wasn't all down. B. Dennis said, do you like Stephon Anthony to pick up for depth? Yeah, and I like his ability to start as well. I mean, even if he can't play all 3 downs, maybe that's an issue with him. Who knows? We'll find out. But I think he was a great pickup. B. Dennis says, do you think J.J. can handle that many carries every game, or should we get Drake and Williams involved more? That is a great question. I do not understand why we didn't. I mean, I know Jay was on fire, And Jay probably didn't want to come out of the game. He's young. He can take that many carries in a game. I don't know about taking that many carries every single game. I think he almost had 20 rushes in the first half, which is insane. So I think we need to mix those two in a little bit more, and Adam, and I trust Adam doing this. He just needs to find areas in the game where we can do that, and I'm sure you should see more Kenyon Drake. We didn't see a lot of Kenyon Drake. I guess they just weren't involved in the game plan as much. So hopefully we see them more involved this next upcoming Sunday. Notice as Patrick says, how was Nate Allen and Rashad Jones? Nate Allen was up and down. Rashad, I thought, had a very good coming back party. Notice Patrick says, how did Xavier do in your opinion? Rewatching the game, I thought there were some plays where he really disrupted Keenan Allen and got him off of his route, and I thought he did a tremendous job. There were some other plays. Again, it wasn't a bad performance. Like, if you rewatch that game, it wasn't a bad performance. It wasn't a great performance. It was an okay performance. And I know that we expect more out of Xavier, especially since the offseason that he had. But I think he's going to be fine. I think we need to do more man press with him because I think that's where he's more comfortable. I think you're going to see a better product on the field if we do that. But I think he did okay. He didn't do tremendous or great or anything like that, but he did okay. Obviously, Keenan had 100 yards off of like 9 catches, but some of that was on the Byron as well. So I don't think it was all Xavier, and I think he did okay. Brandon, they did a great job at the end of that game, I can tell you that right now. Both Byron and Xavier stopping Phillip Rivers from getting down the field and just running out the clock. And again, when you look at the scoreboard, it's only, 17 points. So against the Chargers offense that's that talented, I think we'll take that all day. Let's see here. All right, next question. Brandon says, our offensive line played great today. Do you think we can keep pushing like that? Absolutely. As long as we stay healthy, that offensive line is going to do that each and every single week. If we could just stay healthy, the offensive line will be dominant the entire season, and our record will reflect that as well. So as long as our offensive line can stay healthy, we're going to be a very dominant offense. Stavdog says, Stavdog says, will we go out and find a new linebacker? Yeah, we ended up doing that, obviously. We went out and got Slaney Anthony, which I think is a tremendous pickup. Justin Lee says, fins up, some respect on that. Yes, Ryan Tannehill still, this question comes from Justin Lee. Ryan Tannehill still my boy, and he has too much chemistry with his wide receivers, but Cutler has a great pocket presence. Who do you like more? Question mark. Dude, this is such a tough question right now, since we're in the middle of the season. I'm a huge Tannehill fan. I always will be. I think, again, when you look at all the quarterbacks that have come through this franchise, he is literally the third best quarterback in franchise history, and that's saying something. I think he's one of the best. Again, I love Tannehill. I think he's a really good quarterback, so I still love Tannehill. I love both. I love both of them. We're spoiled right now. When I was watching that game, I thought, man, we are spoiled at the quarterback position, because usually when your franchise quarterback gets hurt, you're stuck with somebody like Scott Tolzien. So fans need to give respect to our front office for getting Jay Cutler, because you look at the Colts right now, and that could be us in terms of our quarterback play, or Blake Bortles. Like, the Jags and Colts would slit somebody's throat right now, kill us all, just to get their hands on Jay Cutler right now, because Jay Cutler is playing like a franchise quarterback, and he will play like that the entire season. This comes from Magnus. He says, I wasn't impressed with our secondary defense. Were you? No, but I think it wasn't physical. I think it was mental, and some of the game plan, I think we should do some tweaks in the game plan as well. Brandon says, I think that you may have been right about Chase Allen. He played with a high motor today. How often do you think he will be used? I think he's going to be used a whole lot, especially since he had the performance he did in his first start. I would expect you would see a lot more of Chase Allen throughout the season. Excuse me, voice crack right there. Throughout the season. And, yeah, you should just see a whole lot more. I think you're going to see his usage go way up. Even though that Rey Mauruga is coming back, I would assume, and maybe Stephon Anthony plays, I would still expect you to see a lot of Chase Allen. And again, he's more like, people are like, oh, the reason we got Rey Mauruga is to dominate the tackle box. Chase Allen is doing that now, and he's a better coverage linebacker. So I think Chase Allen needs to get more playing time than even Rey Mauruga. Let's see here. Brandon says, I think... Oh, okay, never mind. Brandon says, do you know what happened with Timmons. Nobody knows at this point. It was a personal matter. I think it was some kind of family crisis, and then he left the team. And it's understandable. I mean, when a family member is in trouble or is hurt or something like that, obviously you're gonna go. Football is obviously becomes a secondary thing, but you should have at least called. Even at a normal job, you would have called your boss or whoever, whatever you do for a living, and you would have said, "Listen, I can't come to work because my daughter, maybe she got in a car accident. Who knows? And you have to go to the hospital." That you just tell you can. It's a common courtesy just to be like, "Listen, this is where I'm going to be." He did not do that, and I think that's why the Dolphins are so upset. Brandon says, "How do you think Jay Cutler looked, and do you think he will get better?" Yeah, he looked amazing, and I think the game plan was super conservative. I think that was because we're trying to knock the rust off, not because of Jay Cutler, just because of the entire team hadn't played in a while. And I think that had a lot to do with the pass rush as well. Ethan says, thoughts on Jay Cutler. I thought he had a tremendous first game. Thomas Flowers, he says, with some questionable play calls, trick plays in the first half, do you think this game was kind of an experiment for the Fins? Can we expect the defense to improve by next week? Absolutely. Absolutely. The defense should play better. I think as the year goes along, the defense should get better. And as for the offense, I like the trick plays. It didn't fool the Chargers. The reason it didn't fool the Chargers with the Jarvis Landry thing is it was basically the equivalent of a play-action pass. So I think they expected for Adam to take some kind of shot there, so that's why it didn't work. Hopefully we see more of that, though. I like those calls. It will work eventually. Especially against if you're going up against a defense that's struggling and is not as disciplined, that stuff is going to work all day. I hope we keep that kind of stuff up and maybe add Jakeem Grant into some of those. And I hope we see more Jakeem in this next game. Ronald says, how do you rate Byron Maxwell's performance against the Chargers? Very low, very low. Ronald says special teams coverage looked sick without Torrey McTyer flying around causing fumbles. Do you think he should be activated over like McCain or someone? No, I think Bobby did not have a bad game. He actually had a pretty good game. So, that's a good thing that we're not talking about Bobby McCain right now. Ronald says, do you think the league should have handled the halftime exit better instead of letting both teams exit at the same time because a small fight broke out? No, I mean, they're grown men. They're not gonna do something obscene. It's not like it's gonna get life threatening or anything like that. It's fine. I mean, it's fine. I think it's totally fine. Ronald says, I think Matt Darr should still be our punter. What do you think? No, I do think Hawk is he's the more talented guy. And hats off to the coaching staff, and hats off to the front office of going with Cody Parkey because because obviously he scored 15. How many points did he score on Sunday? He scored more points than any other kicker did. So that's amazing. Hopefully we have our franchise kicker for the foreseeable future at Parkey because the kid's got great leg talent and we've went through kickers like gum. So hopefully he is our guy, and I think he is by the way he played on Sunday. And again, the question marks was not whether he could kick, but whether he could make field goals. But your question was, I think Matt Darr. I'm just saying I think the coaching staff has proven that they know what they're talking about, and I think we need to trust them. Obviously, he shanked one punt. He didn't have the greatest game, and we didn't have a lot of punts on Sunday, which is a good thing as well. Fred Robinson, we drove down the field. Fred Robinson says, we drove down the field fine today. It was our red zone offense we had trouble with today. What do you think about Julius Thomas? Can he be that guy like he was in Denver for us? Absolutely. I think he had a good first game. For him not playing all that much and then having 3 receptions for 28 yards, I thought it was a first good game. I think the game plan was not geared to him as much as it was Jay Ajayi in that particular game. So hopefully going up against the Jets, you see more of Jakeem Grant and Kenyon Drake and Julius Thomas. We'll see what the game plan is. I would expect you would. I think you're going to see a lot more of the air attack next week, I would suspect, and a lot more play actions and shots taken downfield. The Dill Pickle says, what player do you think played the best Sunday? I think probably Sue. Sue or Jay, or the offense. I would probably give it to the offensive line, Jay and Sue. Rusher Back says, what do you think of Xavier Howard's performance, and do you think they should try out rookie Tankersley? I think we need to activate Tankersley because I think he's a great gunner as well as a great depth guy. So hopefully we see more of Cordrea. So yeah, I think we should use Cordrea more. Anderson said, do you think Altron Vendor should start in front of Maxwell or McCain? No. Not as if Bobby struggles, yeah, but I don't. Byron, we need to be patient with Byron, because I think he can still be that guy. Again, he's a season removed from having a tremendous last 10 games. Let's see here. Antoine Jackson says, should we sign Darrelle Revis? No, not at this point in time. Jaden Alexander says, Skaggs, what are you impressed with against the Chargers? I was impressed with the mental I can't speak right now, but just mentally not giving up on the road. I mean, that's a tough thing. Just the resiliency. Hopefully I butchered that, but I can't, for some reason, can't say that word right now. And just the mental aspect of the game and the mental makeup of this team really impressed me. And the offensive line really impressed me in terms of just the positional group. I think the offensive line and the defensive line really impressed me on Sunday. Let's see here. The Gamer12345 says, what would be your thoughts on drafting quarterback Mason Rudolph next year? I actually do not like. I just don't like Mason Rudolph. I've seen him have too many bad games. I don't know. I just don't like Mason Rudolph that much. The Gamer12345 says, would you consider Dolphins playing against the Jets a walk in the park? No NFL game is a walk in the park. I don't care if you're playing. It doesn't matter. Every NFL game is not easy, even if the scoreboard is lopsided. The Gamer12345 says, do you think we could put up 40 points on the terrible Saints defense? I don't know. Who knows? The Gamer12345 says, who looked the best for the Dolphins and who looked the worst? I mean, who had the best performance? Probably from, like, many different people did. Who had the worst? I would say just overall the secondary as a unit just need to do a better job of communication. The Gamer12345 says, should the Dolphins trade for Bears cornerback Kyle Fuller? No. Again, I'm confident in the talent. It's just the mental side as of right now. They just need to get acclimated with playing each other. Brandon says, Devontae Parker impressed today. Do you think he can keep up that play? Absolutely. Brandon says, how do you feel about Mike Cole? I think he did actually pretty good. Pretty okay. Do you agree? He did okay in some aspects of the game, but I was not happy overall with the performance. He's just not physically capable on the NFL level to keep up with some of these athletic scatbacks. And so I just, especially in open space tackling. Let's see here. Brandon says, our offense looked good despite the slow start in the first half. How do you feel about our play? Our offense, on the first drive, we got a field goal. I think we got off to a really fast start. We just couldn't finish. Not only did we get a field goal, but we were in there inside we were the 15-yard line, so we were in the red zone as well. Cody says, do you think, Cody Parkey is yes, I do think Cody Parkey is an upgrade from Andrew Franks. Cypher Oxide says, the Timmons situation caught me off guard. Do you think the defense would have played better with him on the field? Absolutely. Alec Jeffrey said, based on the game, what are your thoughts on the linebacker play without Lawrence Timmons? It was not, other than Mike Cole, it was pretty dang good. Man Gamer says, what are your thoughts about Jarvis Landry catching the ball one-handed 3 times and also trying to get the touchdown with a one-handed leap? Well, he didn't want to get it with a one-handed leap. It was just not the greatest throw in the world. And yeah, Jay Cutler needs to lob that over the underneath coverage there, and that would have been an easy touchdown. But he just missed him. Let's see here. Man Gamer says, do you think Parkey is a clutch kicker because of his kick power, and he will be clutch in the fourth quarter and playoffs? Yeah, he's got a lot of talent. Jay the Boss 14, he says, your thoughts on the secondary? I thought they played like turtles. Yeah, they did. Again, like I said throughout this entire podcast, I know you guys are super worried about it. It was more along the lines of the mental side. I really do believe that. Axel Rivera says, should we start Tankersley over Maxwell? No, I think Byron, we need to give him time. Highlight Film says, what happened to Timmons? All I heard is that he went AWOL. that basically it was a family issue, and that's it. That's all we really know. Gamerific says, did Tankersley play in the game? I didn't see him. No. And Noah Nick Sports says Parkey is clutch. Yes, he is. So that has been your podcast for this week. And I am Skagster1083, and I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. And if there's anything you want changed, if there's anything you would like to see, let me know down in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.